What if the greatest leadership advantage today is not experience, authority, or expertise, but the ability to learn under pressure? Welcome to Coaching Talks, folks. This is where we explore practical leadership insights for the modern workplace. Hi, I'm Richard Fontanie, and today's conversation focuses on cultivating a growth mindset and learning to embrace challenges as opportunities. Now, those opportunities are for growth and for development. Before we dive in, please take a moment to subscribe, follow, or share this podcast with a colleague or a leader who wants to grow. Your support helps spread practical leadership conversations, and those make a true difference. This year, our focus is on one theme per week, and our theme for today is developing a growth mindset for leaders in the traditional workplace. On Mondays, we discuss the week's theme from a Christian and universal values perspective. On Wednesdays, we explore the week's theme from a leadership and workplace perspective, just like this one. And on Fridays, we talk about affiliate marketing from a digital perspective. So join us on those days, particularly if they interest you and the days that interest you the most. Now let's turn to today's topic. Cultivating a growth mindset, embrace challenges as opportunities for learning. Leadership today operates in constant change. Technology evolves, teams shift, and expectations increase. In this environment, leaders who cling to certainty often struggle, while leaders who commit to learning continue to grow. A growth mindset is not about being optimistic all the time. It's about being committed to improvement even when things feel uncomfortable. At its core, a growth mindset recognizes that leadership capability is in the process of development and not something that is fixed. Skills such as communication, decision-making, emotional intelligence, and strategic thinking improve through practice and feedback and reflection. Now, let's explore 7 leadership strategies that will help you develop a growth mindset as we go about our work within a traditional workplace. First, normalize the challenge as part of leadership. Now, growth-minded leaders openly acknowledge that challenges are expected and not to be avoided. When leaders frame difficulty as a learning signal rather than a failure, teams follow suit. This creates a culture where experimentation feels safe and progress becomes possible. Second, replace performance-only metrics with learning-focused questions. Instead of asking only, did you succeed? Ask, what did we learn? Now, this shift reduces defensiveness and increases accountability. Leaders who value learning encourage thoughtful risk-taking over perfection. Third, model curiosity under pressure. Now, when things go wrong, fixed mindset leaders look for someone to blame. Growth mindset leaders ask questions like, what assumptions were made? What information was missing? And what can we do differently next time? Curiosity keeps teams engaged rather than discouraged. Fourth, treat feedback as fuel and not as a threat. Leaders with a growth mindset actively seek feedback from their peers, their direct reports, and from their mentors. They demonstrate that feedback is not about personal inadequacy, but professional development. When leaders receive feedback openly, others feel safer so that they can do the same thing as their leader. Fifth, invest in skill building and not just outcomes. Now, growth-minded leaders allocate time for learning, training, and reflection. They understand that results improve when people are equipped and not merely pressured. They view development as a strategic investment and not as an expense, and certainly not as a distraction from productivity. Sixth, reframe mistakes as data opportunities for development. Now, mistakes happen in every organization. The difference lies in how leaders respond. Growth-oriented leaders examine mistakes objectively, extracting lessons and adjusting systems. Now, this approach prevents repetition while preserving morale and trust. Seventh, encourage ownership of growth at every level. Now, when leaders have a growth mindset, they empower individuals to take responsibility for their development. And when leaders provide support, resources, and clarity, they can also expect that individuals will take initiative. Now, this balance builds confidence and capability across teams. Now, these strategies are not theoretical. They play out every day in real workplaces. Consider a department manager facing declining performance. A fixed mindset might conclude that the team lacks talent. A growth mindset asks whether processes, training, or communication need improvement. Now, this second approach leads to solutions rather than stagnation. In another example, a new leader stepping into a senior role may feel pressure to appear confident at all times. A growth-minded leadership creates space to say, "I'm learning," while still leading decisively. Now, this honesty builds credibility rather than diminishing authority. A growth mindset also matters during organizational change. Mergers, restructures, and new systems create uncertainty. Now, this I know because I have dealt with many organizations that have undergone change. Leaders who emphasize learning and adaptation help teams navigate transitions with resilience rather than resistance. In everyday leadership moments, mindset shows up in language. Phrases such as, "That didn't work yet," "Let's test and learn," or "What's the lesson here?" Such indications subtly reinforce a growth-oriented mindset. And over time, these small signals shape culture. Note also that cultivating a growth mindset does not eliminate accountability, and in fact, it strengthens accountability. When learning is valued, people are more willing to take responsibility for outcomes because they are not paralyzed by fear of failure. For leaders, this internal work matters as much as external behavior. So pay attention as well to your self-talk. When faced with a challenge, don't default to self-criticism. Awareness is that first step toward change. And in this regard, I suggest you go back to week 1 in this series. And that's where I discuss self-awareness. And we can also find it on the Fontanie magazine .com. You know, a practical application begins with self-reflection. So consider identifying one leadership challenge you are currently facing. Ask what skills, perspectives, or resources you might need to develop, rather than assuming limitations. Next, involve your team. Invite a conversation about what the challenge is that you're faced with. And this transforms problems into shared learning experiences. And finally, commit to consistent actions that lead to growth. And remember, a growth mindset is reinforced through habits and not intentions. So, schedule learning time. Seek feedback regularly. Reflect after key decisions. And leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about a willingness to grow into better questions. When leaders embrace challenges as opportunities to learn, they create environments where people thrive. Innovation increases, and performance improves. Now here's your call to action this week, and it's simple and practical. Choose one challenge that you have been avoiding. Reframe it as a learning opportunity. Take one small step towards it and invite reflection afterward. And growth does not happen overnight, but it always begins with mindset. So when leaders grow, their organizations grow with them. Now, thank you for joining me today. I'm Richard Fontanie. Let's meet again next week when we explore self-limiting beliefs. See you then. Bye now.